Hi everybody, my name is Jerry, I'm from Wild Eye, and as you guys know, every 10 episodes is a Q&A in which I try and answer your wildlife photography, nature, travel, wild eye related questions. Now, episode 200 was quite a big one for me, and in there I decided to take the Q&A and make it 100% just about social media and wildlife photography. Great response, I love the feedback, thank you, and we'll go deeper in that stuff as the year goes on. For now though, for this episode, right back to normal Q&A. I asked people on my Instagram from yesterday to ask a whole bunch of questions with regards to travel, photography, nature, wildlife, wild eye. I also included the destinations where I was recently. So as you might know, a couple of weeks ago, I went to the US on the first leg of a wild eye marketing trip. Now that included, I've got to remember this first, that included Boston, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. That was the one where Dixon joined me. And then came back for a week, and I've just returned literally yesterday from a trip that included London for 4 days. Then I went to Washington, D.C., then to San Francisco, then to Vegas, and then lastly, Dallas, y'all. Now, the idea with that whole thing is a marketing roadshow where we go and we exhibit at travel and adventure shows and tell people how easy it is to actually experience nature and wildlife and such. So that's kind of where I am now. I'm still a little bit jet lagged. I've been working from home this morning. The funny thing is, I'm in this perpetual place of being on a flight or checked in for a flight. I literally arrived yesterday at home right about 10 o'clock in the morning after flying Dallas, Heathrow, little layover, and then Heathrow down to Johannesburg. So jet lag is real, but this morning I had to check in for my flight for tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm off to Kenya, where I'm hosting the first private guided trip I'm doing this year, which is to the Masai Mara, then to Sabi Sands, then to Cape Town and Vic Falls. It's Laurie, my client's first trip ever to Africa. I can't wait to share it with her. And it's one of the things I spoke to people about at the travel shows in quite a bit of detail is what it is like to come for the first time, what it is like to see your first lion in the wild. I always equate it to seeing my first polar bear in the wild, which is like mind blown. But yeah, so I'm going to be hopefully recording some podcast on the road from Mara, if I can, speak to some people, Sabi Sands, speak to some people. And also, I want to sit with Laurie, if you're listening, towards the end of the trip, maybe at Vic Falls, and record a podcast with her as my guest, and to share what she experienced, what it was like, and how her expectations of her first trip and her first photography trip to Africa played out. I think it's a great thing. I also, as you guys know, have some interviews lined up. It's just time is a bit of a luxury right now, just go. But I will get those to you in due course as well. And you'd have realized and recognized, if you listen to the podcast, that the guys from the offices are busy doing their own solo podcast as well. I will edit and export them and intro it for them. But I've asked them to get more involved because it's such a great platform for them to share their knowledge and experience with you guys as well. So Mike just did two. I know Marlon's got some more lined up, and I think it's a great thing, so you don't only have to listen to me all the time. That's a great thing. Anyway, let's get into Q&A now. There's a whole bunch of them here. I'm going to just lean over here and check where we are. There we are. There's the first one. And I'm going to literally just run them top to bottom. As you guys know, if you're listening to the podcast, this particular episode, every 10 episodes is available on YouTube as well, on both the wildlife photography Q&A and the podcast playlists. And I am also, as always now, recording this for IGTV as well. I'm trying to put every one of the podcasts onto Instagram TV as well, just because, another platform. Right, so first one for Q&A, here we go. First question is, how hard is it to maintain the physical strength since you continuously work offline and online? Now, I'm assuming this has to do with fitness. It is very difficult, and I think the one thing, and I've spoken about this in the past, for me that's important when you travel a lot is to get some kind of rhythm going. The things that's important is sleep, mental health, i.e. spending some time for yourself away from guests just to break it up, keep yourself centered. And for me and for a lot of you guys, the physical side of it is how you do it. So it is hard. I mean, if you have to be down at the lodge, for example, at 5 o'clock, it's very difficult to then go wake up an hour earlier to train, or in the evening. It's tough, but I think it is very important. The interesting thing as well, and I've spoken to a couple of people about this, is when people talk about physical training, you talk about physical strength. Now I'm taking it at face value because fitness is not just strength or just cardio. strength to get stronger. Maybe this is the wrong track, but to get stronger, you need to lift heavy weights, increasingly heavy weights. So that is unless a lodge has a gym, it's very difficult. So it's tough, but hey, you do what you do. Next one, your favorite cities in Europe and America? Rainier B asks. Now, America's tough for me because I love the country, I really do. New York for me will always be in my top 3, regardless of whatever city you're talking about. Dallas was actually very interesting. Loved the people, loved the culture, music, just everything was great. Tucson, Arizona, I did enjoy. Los Angeles, San Francisco, nice, but nothing for me personally like, wow, I must live here. So I mean, in America, I think for now, let's go with the 3 would be New York, Boston. I really dig Boston. So let's go New York, Boston, and somewhere either in Texas or Arizona. Somewhere there. Europe, I haven't been to Europe in a while. Let me think about this. Favorite city in Europe? I'm trying to think what my favorites were. When we were working on the ships, I worked on cruise liners many years ago. We stopped in little small cities around the coast, places like Civitavecchia. So it's smaller, and then from there you're going to explore places like Rome. Paris was great, but a little bit too busy. I'm going to have to get back on the Europe one. I did a lot. I did most of Europe, but nothing right now that pops and says I have to go back immediately. I'll think about that one. Right, next one. How much longer until I can see you in Chicago again? Well, I'll be back in Chicago presenting next year. I think it is end of January this time. So I'm just going in the colder times all the time. So back in Chicago next year, presentations, workshops, and meetups. So next year, answer to that one. Jenny Suzuki asks, with all the traveling you do and time changes to adjust to, does it take a toll on you? I suppose yes. It does take a toll. But you can, maybe this is just weird, but you can either bitch and moan about it or you can just get on with it. I think for me, I'm very grateful to be able to do what I do. And I make a point, like mentioned earlier on, 2 things. And I've did this in a vlog recently. Mental side of it and physical side of it. If you take care of that, then it should be okay. The moment, and I say to the guides as well, is if you get to a point where you start your feeling to not burn out, but get tired, do something about it. Take a break. Go sleep earlier. Don't have another drink with clients. Rather just have one and say, excuse yourself. You have to do that. Time changes, hey, there's not much you can do. What I try and do is the moment I get to the place where I'm traveling to and there's a massive time change, do some kind of physical activity. I try and eat according to the new destination's time zones, i.e., if I land there at breakfast, even though in my previous time zone it might be dinner, I eat breakfast. It seems to help. And I also, when I get on the plane and there's lots of time zones lined up or coming up, I will try and sleep according to it, but it's difficult. So it takes its toll, but you have to be realistic about what you do and how you do it. So you just do what you can, I suppose. Right. Lindsay asks, what's your take on the people that attend the travel shows in terms of interest in Africa? Questions they had, etc. Now, I think there's 2 types of people we meet at these travel shows. And the first kind is people who didn't know this exists. They didn't know that you can do a safari, i.e. go on a trip to view wildlife. And to them, it's like a whole world of discovery. Now, with them, once they understand that there exists such a thing as safari and wildlife tours, and then for people who know about it, one of the main questions always goes back to safety. Is it safe to travel to XYZ country? Is it safe to go on a game drive? Is it safe to fly this airline? Now, for whatever reason, Africa is still seen as the dark continent. And then you get Trump saying it's a shithole countries and what have you, whatever. But safety is a concern, and we do, put it this way, I like what I do, and from Africa, we're not always as kind of strict, this is going to sound wrong, but around the rules and stuff. So I'm happy to kind of roll with the punches. It's kind of what we do, right? But I would not put myself at risk in any destination I go to, more than if I was with a client. Why would I do that? I still want to come home after a trip. So if we go to places, you can rest assured that we've done all that math from top to bottom. The concern I have sometimes is at the travel show, I think it was Los Angeles, I listened to a lady on one of the travel stages where she was talking. She was from the Department of Homeland Affairs or something from the States, right? And she was talking about how travel advisories get issued. And I was standing with my mouth open because some of the shit she was talking on stage, I'm like, what the hell, man? I was there a week ago and what you just said isn't true at all. It doesn't work like that. So I think people will always err on the side of caution. It's the same thing. One of the questions that comes up often, Lindsay, is what injections or what kind of medical stuff you should prep for. Now, the majority of doctors will give you a list this long, but the requirement is set at country level. So the country will say to you, you need yellow fever and we recommend malaria. Yet the doctor gives you 50 things. I always say to the clients, reconcile those two. Speak to your operator, me or whoever you travel with, and ask, what does the country say? What is required? Not as what is suggested. And then start working from there, because a lot of the stuff is overkill. And I think because of that overkill on travel advisories, because of the overkill on what people think is required from a medical point of view, people get scared and they think, no, fuck, this isn't worth it. So most of the questions, I think, revolves around, initially, around safety. But then the deeper people go, they start understanding that there's a whole lot more to this. Then they start asking, and we kind of guide them towards the correct questions. When should I go to Africa? Why should I go to Africa? Where should I go if I want to see X, Y, and Z? Right? So when should you go and see gorillas? When should you go in the Great Migration? Maybe that's a podcast idea for the future, is when should I go to Africa? Because you can go to Africa anytime. I urge people to ask more questions. Lindsay, I know you were at the last presentation I did in Dallas. And the question there is, I urge them to ask, when should I go? Where should I go for this? And so what type of accommodation should I be looking at? Because I think not every safari is created equal. And the more questions you ask, the better the experience will be. So questions, I drive them towards that, but most of them start from a safety point of view. The interest is tough because most people, the Great Migration always features gorillas. Seem to be hot right now. Everybody wants to see gorillas. And then the big five, the cats, predators. Those are kind of the stock standard ones that most people want to see when they come on a trip. Right. Byron asks, deciding which website to use for galleries portfolio and selling prints, SmugMug versus others. SmugMug? SmugMug? I think it depends on what you want to do with your portfolio, Byron. To me, SmugMug is an incredible platform for you to get a portfolio online and then to sell images off the back of it. I got to know a lot more about the product recently because I actually went to the SmugMug offices where I presented. I use SmugMug. It's a great platform, and not just for selling, but the cool thing as a photographer, Byron, I think you still work either in Madikwe or in Pilanesberg. I don't know where you are now, but you can link your SmugMug account straight to your Lightroom, where it says on the Lightroom side, you've got catalog, folders, collections, and published services. You can link your SmugMug to published services directly from Lightroom. You can then gather images, put them in a collection inside this, and that creates a gallery on your SmugMug website. And it's, to me, the easiest way to create content online, because I can then just open the SmugMug app, and then straight from there, I can share to Instagram or Facebook or whatever the case is. The other ones that there are revolve around blogging and such with the gallery feature. So you have to ask yourself, do I want to go just the photography route, or do I want to have blogging features for the future as well? I would recommend personally that you always have some kind of other platform, blogging, podcast, YouTube. But Byron, if you're just going straight for website, for portfolio, you can't go wrong with SmugMug. If you want me to hook you up, let me know and I'll see if I can get you a discount on a SmugMug website, because it's awesome. Cool question, Byron. Laura from my office, hello Laura, asks, what is the best experience I had in London? Now, I haven't spent time in London for quite some time, right? But it was so damn busy. So let me talk from a business point of view. From a business point of view, the best experience I had was seeing how much potential there is for us, for me, and for the guys from Wild Eye to have a presence there and to offer people what we do. There are people doing what we do there, but I mentioned this in the previous podcast. There seems to be some kind of, the community there feels like they need something fresh. Maybe it's out of line, but that's what I think. From a personal point of view, I didn't actually have that much time to go around and do stuff. I literally had like 7 or 8 meetings a day. I was going from one coffee shop to the next coffee shop to lunch to a bar to a coffee shop to a lunch to a bar, meeting with people. But I think apart from what I do in these cities, whenever I travel, I go and run a 10K. And it's kind of a Tommy Tourist 10K. So I'll go run around and look at stuff. So I went past the Eye and the bridge and all the cool stuff. Trafalgar Square, blah, blah, blah. The one thing that actually stood out to me was, and I'm so lost for the name of it right now, there's a tunnel that goes, when you walk from the Eye of London, London Eye, the Ferris wheel thing, you walk under a bridge from Waterloo across to the other side. And in this tunnel, there's graffiti. It is insane. It blew my mind. It was almost like I was in a movie. So Subi, one of my clients, took me for dinner and he walked me through there. To me, I think visually was probably the most exciting part of the trip. But I think it's unfair though, because I thought it was a beautiful city. I just didn't have enough time in between work to really get stuck in. But yeah, I'd love to go back. And I'm going back to London next year. More dedicated trip, more presentations, and yeah, maybe some of the shows as well. Stay tuned. Watch this space, as they say. Next one here. Starbuck Photography asks, what mosquito repellent do you use? Man, it's not at the top of my packing list. I'm not going to lie to you. The two that's often is Tabard and Peaceful Sleep. If not that, whatever I can find. I mean, most of the lodges we go to have these things. I've always got a small Tabard in my bag somewhere. But I'm really not stuck on brands. I actually couldn't care as long as it keeps it away. Yeah, there's no list that comes. But I mean, for me, the two that we find here in South Africa, Tabard and Peaceful Sleep. I suppose that'll work. Right, next one. Mary asks, is there any country and or major city you haven't visited at the top of your bucket list, not including Antarctica? I've been very privileged that first with gymnastics, I was competing internationally. I got to some strange, especially Eastern European, Bulgaria, like Sofia in Bulgaria, beautiful town. Yeah, I did a lot of travel with that, and then also with the ships, and then you travel. Major cities, you know, the one thing that I'm finding kind of interesting is I've never been to Australia. So I think that will be interesting to me, and I know a lot of people there, so that is kind of high up on the list as far as cities go. Sydney, all of those, just go and check it out and see the vibe, because a lot of people say it's very similar to South Africa. I don't know. Other than that, Antarctica is kind of high up on the list. I am doing Pantanal next year, so I'm looking forward to getting back to Brazil. Did a whole bunch of the coastline, so we did all the way from, it was, I'm trying to remember what it was. It was a 3-month South America cruise where we started from New York, went all the way, stopped in all the ports around South America and went up to the other side. But I think if anything now, probably Antarctica and Australia would be the top two for me. I would also like to get back to China and Japan. Haven't been there for a long time. So I suppose those would be it. Next one, Brendan from New York asks, thoughts on photographing people you don't know, ethics, privacy, permissions, etc. Brendan, this is not really my game, although I do find it really interesting. I think there's all kinds of laws in different countries where if you take a picture of someone and you're recognizable, can you actually use that image? Is it right to use that image? So I'm of the opinion, and I think images will show, is if you photograph people, you are going to get better images if you actually engage with them first, i.e., hi. I mean, even if you don't speak the language, holding a camera up, I've got a camera here somewhere, holding it up and smiling and kind of pointing at it, they'll know you mean you want to take a picture. If you do that, I think you're going to get stronger images because they're actually engaging with you, and you make, even been talking to them for a while, getting to know them. There's one of my clients and a great friend, Christopher Michel out of San Francisco, is probably one of the best people at this. I've never seen someone so comfortable walking up to someone, asking them, can I take your picture? Can I make an image of you? And the images show, it really does. I don't like the idea of sitting back with a longer lens and kind of sniping at people. It feels a bit kind of paparazzi-ish and stalkerish and just weird. But I think if you keep it real, if you ask someone first, you'll bypass all the ethics and privacy and permissions and stuff. If you're going to use it for sale, obviously you need a model release if you're going to take money from it from a stock point of view. But I think it's a great thing, and it is something, if you've been watching my content, I am going to go more that route of different genres, because I believe, and Brendan, you're coming with me to Svalbard, so you'll know this, if you photograph people, that the approach transfers very well to other things, like primates specifically. Bears I find interesting with the way their heads moves. The cats, they've got moods, if you will. But yeah, I think if you engage with people first and not just like grab shots of them, I think you'll bypass all of the ethics and privacy things. And I think your images will be the better for it. I really do. Miguel Anton Photo asks, photo hides industry prospects in Africa. Interesting one, because a lot of people are going the route of hides and building hides. And now, as fond as I am of shooting in a hide, and there are some great hides out there, I fear that a lot of people use hides and other stuff as gimmicks in order to sell photography. I think it should be a part of the bigger picture, not the only thing. I'm not sure what the prospects are, quite honestly. I don't know who. I mean, we're looking at kind of getting involved in a hide in one of the lodges in Madikwe, but that's kind of an aside thing, small at this stage. But there's some great places. I mean, most lodges now are looking at these things because is it a phase? Is it a gimmick that might die off? I don't know. I'm not sure who is planning anything or what's happening out there, but it's interesting. I can't give you more than that. Sorry, I don't know. Next one, DCT Wave asks, are you adding any new city destinations to your next US visit? So at this stage, and this is pending, we are looking next year from January to March, April. I'm going to be visiting, in no particular order, New York, Chicago, Boston, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Dallas. London would be again not in the US. Depending on how I put the trip together, I might be doing more of a legit road show where I travel through between one to the other and add in presentations and workshops en route. So I'm looking at scaling that part of it up, but I'll share more of that in due course. So as of this stage, I think I've been to all of them. So nothing new confirmed yet, but definitely something will come out of this for sure. MLTGLCK, why do you drink so much coffee? Why not? Why not? I like coffee. That's it. I like coffee. Wilderness Fairy asks, hi Jerry, I don't know if this counts as a question, but how can I get a Wild Eye hoodie? That's a very good question or comment. Wilderness Fairy, what you do is send me an email. I'll put it down here for you. Send me an email, tell me your size, and I will see what I can do. I'm sure we can make a plan. Okay, next one. BMOW asks, what are the best models of conservation where government, business, society are working effectively together? Sure, wide question. There's a couple of places, and I think the interesting thing is what you mentioned here is conservation, where government, business, and society are working together. The first thing that comes to mind for me is how Madikwe was formed. Madikwe was a 3-year partnership between the government, the private landowners, and conservation bodies. They were put together, and that's why it was such a successful model. I think the problem is that often one of the three in your won't work. Government don't want to give away the land. Local communities who might have hunted on that land don't want to give it to conservation because that's their land. Businesses might want too much or too little money. I'm going to be honest, I don't know what's happening out there. I haven't had my ear on the ground from that kind of thing for a bit. Been kind of away for 3 months. But the important thing is that you want those three to work together. If one of them bails, it's not going to work as well as it can. Worth following up. I'm going to follow up on that one. Interesting. Spoken Wildlife asks, if you had to pick 2 of your best places to travel to photograph, which ones would they be and why? Right. Spoken Wildlife, that's Shazmeen. I'm going to break it. If it's wildlife specific, right? Ambercellia, I've got a soft spot for. It's a great destination. Svalbard, for me, as an overall wildlife destination, is ridiculously amazing. It's more than wildlife. Madagascar blew my mind photographically. I think there's a lot to be done there. I'm looking forward to coming to the Pantanal, but I think if I had to narrow it down now, Ambercellia would definitely be one. And the second, I'm going to go with Madagascar for now, just because I've only done one. Svalbard I've done a couple of years, and it's still fucking amazing. But Madagascar for now intrigues me, so I'm looking forward to getting back there next year. That's wildlife-wise. I would love, and this is what I spoke about earlier on, kind of changing things up. I would love to go to London and spend some time to photograph the place. I would love to go back to a place like Fort Worth in Texas. Real cowboy vibe, and I think the photography you can do there is pretty cool. So I'm trying to expand out and do more of different types of things. And I think something like that. But London I find interesting. Chicago I ran a workshop in street photography, and I think there's something there that speaks to me. So any big city, and then something like Fort Worth, small city, if that makes sense. But yeah, Amboseli for now and Madagascar I think are, for me, where my photography is going and what I want to teach people, I think those speak to me quite heavily. Callum's Wildlife Photography asks, are you planning on maybe doing a Galapagos and Amazon combo safari? Short answer, no. Not yet, no. Okay, now I'm seeing here, there's 5 from Mary, which asked the same question. So, stories for other photographers, it was, let me just find this. I have a second question. Yesterday I read what a well-known wildlife photographer gave advice in his stories for other photographers. It was all about equipment, prime equipment, full frame, high resolution cameras, and always using prime lenses. Zoom lenses aren't good enough to capture the emotions. He also recommended wide angle lenses with remote controlled cameras, and don't read the camera manual too closely. Look at other photographers instead. I have always thought that the photography skills rather than the prime lenses make for a good shot, and someone starting out reading this just might give up. What is your opinion on this? Now, hold that thought, because the second question here is also the same from someone else. David Yarrow just posted some tips with confusing wait, hang on, I'll try that again. David Yarrow posted some tips which is confusing considering I use a zoom, etc. Any feedback on this? So, I'm just going to quickly find this here. The post you guys are talking about, I did see it, and I do think there's value for us to dig deeper. The post said, in his photography tips, which is great, you should always use primes rather than zooms because their performance is that much stronger. Now, in the episode after this, 211, I'm going to go into this. Short version for now. David's an amazing photographer and a great artist. I do, however, disagree with this because you have to look at what your end goal is. If you are David Yarrow and your end goal is to create masterpieces, right? Stuff that really looks amazing. Yes. What about 99% of other people? So I disagree with it at base level, but in the next episode, I'm going to explore this in a bit more detail. Is there another one here? Last one. How can we help the poaching crisis if it's okay to ask? That's from Christian52. Your goal, your answer is as good as mine. I think from a poaching point of view, education is key. We have to start educating people at base level in the communities around the protected areas, because that's where the poachers have to go through. That's where a lot of the poachers come from in instances, right? So I think education is a big part. I think awareness is a big part. I think we need to share more images from the places we're trying to protect. These people who get all excited and jump up and down, if I say, I post an image of a rhino and I tag Madikwe Game Reserve and they lose their shit because, oh, you can't post it, the poachers are going to know. Well, if I don't post it, how are people going to know there's great looking animals in this reserve? Madikwe is a big 5 reserve. Of course there's rhino. It's not a secret. So I think the first thing is education. I think the second thing is awareness. I also think we need to find something to work together on, because there are 200. I mean, in South Africa, there's like hundreds of places registered to save rhino and to protect rhino and to help anti-poaching, whatever. Nobody's working together. So you need some kind of poster company or poster person to be the center to draw all of it together. Otherwise, it's never going to work. How can we help? How can you help? How can I help? Again, educate as many people as possible, raise an awareness, and I mean, things like, this is another question that linked to this, is people would ask, what can I do with my wildlife images to assist conservation? Give it away for free. Give your images to conservation bodies, whichever one of the 200, give it away so they can then use it for their marketing and for their awareness and so on. So you can write blogs about your feeling, you can share content about it. So on a personal level, you can go really deep and create content, which again does one of two things: educate and raise awareness. So that would be it. Right, done. Guys, that is a wrap on episode 210, Q&A. Some great questions, and I love that it's going a bit all over the place. One of the things, and I mentioned this a while ago, with all the guys producing more content now, you're going to get more different opinions, you're going to get different ideas on wildlife photography. But it also allows me to explore, if wildlife photography is here, I can now start exploring a little bit wider into the sides. and do different things as well, which is great. So thank you for all the questions, really cool. If in between, you don't have to wait for every 10 episodes to ask your question. If it's good, I file them and we'll pull them back up. Or if you have something really that I think really resonate with me and with possibly with the audience, I will answer that question in isolation as a separate episode, or I will do a video, or I will just email you back and try and assist where I can. So question and answer is a great, great way for us to explore and learn. Me as well. I mean, some of the questions I have to think about and just kind of makes me think in a different direction, which I think is good. So that's it for now. 210 is a wrap, guys. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening wherever you are, YouTube, Instagram TV, podcast. Always appreciate the attention and you guys actually following the journey. For me personally, there's a couple of changes coming up, I think, in the next year or so, which you will see it rolls out. But I'm excited for that. For now, like I said, off to Kenya tomorrow, and I will be in touch from there. But that's me for now. As always, guys, thank you so much. I will chat to you in the next episode. My name is Jerry. I'm from Wild Eye. Have a good one.